What is up, my fellow gamers? In today's video we got our best guide for Yami. Like and sub for more amazing gaming content. First skill we got is double strike. This one we can use as much as we want. It does not consume SP and it does not have a cooldown. Attacks after granting an increased all attacks, so we're getting that buff upon having 4 or more SP. So that's the real kicker right there, is if we don't have 4 or more SP, then we don't get that increased all attack buff. Now the whole idea behind Yami, this character, is he's really good for PvP combat, really good for just putting a bunch of different status elements on the enemy, like silence and also HP recovery immunity. So basically they can't recover HP. So even though he is like an attacker, he actually has some really good debuffs going with him. But the problem is his main skill card, his skill page, is the one that goes ahead and it constantly is going to regenerate you SP. And that's kind of how you're able to like abuse this ability and constantly do this double strike while also maintaining enough SP that you can use your special skill, your ultimate skill, and get that -3 SP debuff on an enemy and then inflict silence on them as well. And then with skill 2, where we inflict HP recovery immunity on all enemies for 1 turn and we get an extra SP. So his whole idea, his whole gimmick is you want to constantly be generating a lot of SP. Now, unfortunately, if you're just not lucky like me, I haven't pulled his skill card yet. The next thing that you would want to do is just kind of pair him up with another hero that's going to be a support and going to generate SP for him. I'll go over a few suggestions shortly, but I just want to go over to the summon system so we can show this off this specific page. This is the one we want, easygoing teacher. The upgraded effect is really good. We're now going to get SP +2 buffs. So inflicts HP recovery immunity on all enemies for 1 turn. We get an extra SP +2. We remove 1 debuff, and then when a debuff is removed, it grants us an extra 15% damage dealt buff as well. And then this bottom part, the passive, 20% chance to just go ahead and give us SP +1 upon attacking. So that's every time we do an attack. So you see, it's really hard to kind of like find something that could be like a replacement for this, because there's really not any skill card out there that does all this. I mean, this is a lot. So because of that, there's really only 2 options I would say that you can go ahead and put. First option would be just to look out for a skill card that's going to increase his speed. Because the other important thing is we really want him to go first before anyone else as well. Kind of paired up with Asta, it's kind of like, you want Asta to go first, and then you kind of want him to go right after Asta. But overall, you just want to go before your opponent goes. And then the other option is to just go for something basic that's just going to give you extra attack. I mean, that's what I did. I just went with this SSR skill card, Breath of the Darkness. We're just getting an extra 10% attack, or even the Backlight of a Leaf, which grants us immunity to stun for 1 turn. We just don't want Yami to get CC'd, because if we get like stunned or anything like that, it's really going to hurt us, because we want to be in control. We never want our opponents to kind of take control over the status elements and be constantly putting debuffs on us, especially Yami, because he's like, even though he's like considered an attacker, he's really a debuffer at heart. I would honestly consider him a debuffer, because he just has so much strong CC effects and just debuffing effects. Really super simple combined attack, but we get that barrier removal, which is always good to have. Once you do get him to that LR rarity, we get our unique passive, which grants us 15% increased favored damage dealt, which means if we're going against the affinity wheel, so he is a blue, and we're going up against someone who's a red, we're actually doing 15% more extra damage. The cool thing about Yami is he works off of both the regular attack and the magic attack. So we can take advantage of both of these stats, and that's gonna play a huge role when it comes to selecting what gear we wanna put on Yami. The red dungeon for the gear, so you should be able to farm this up fairly easy as long as you build out a really strong blue team around him. If we take a look at some of these gear sets, this one is gonna be one of our top main ones, Secret of the Deep Sea. we're gonna get that increased speed. And like I mentioned before, we wanna make sure we go first and we're putting all those debuffs and status elements on our enemies before they have a turn to go. And the other one that's really good, and we don't even have to take the 4-piece set for this. We can even just take the 2-piece set, and that is the ominous gear. And that is because the 2-piece is giving us extra 7% to our attack and an extra 7% for our magic attack. And because Yami takes advantage of both types of attacks, this is 14% extra basically that we're getting added to our attack power, which is really strong. We don't necessarily need to go for the 4-piece set to get the extra 15% damage dealt, although hey, I mean, it's really good. But if you are limited in space and you're only able to fit like 6 pieces of gear, going with 4 with the speed and then 2 with this is really strong. Or even just flip-flopping them and going 2 with the secrets of the deep sea. And then if you want that extra damage, you could go 4. Aside from those 2 gear sets, there really isn't anything else that's like really standoutish that is gonna help us with Yami, because Yami, we just really want to use him as a big, heavy damage dealer. I wish there was like a gear piece set that had to do with like increasing our SP or something, but there isn't. We only have stuff like defense or fortify. You could go the crit rate, crit damage build as well. Like there are some sets that will give you that crit rate, crit damage, which is another option. But I think the fact that we utilize both magic attack and regular attack, you really want to just abuse the fact that we can take something like this. As far as talents go for attacking, the one I'm going to go with is pretty simple. There isn't any of these other ones that are really appealing to me. This one has to do with bosses. We've got the magic attack plus 7%, but just these 2 right here, extra 7% attack and then the extra damage dealt 5%. Pretty much, I would say almost any one of these is pretty viable. It's just going to depend on the content you're looking for. But me personally, I think the Iron Will is very important, that we get that debuff immunity for 1 turn if our HP is equal to or lower than 35%. And that's because, like I said, we don't want him to ever get debuffed. And then for support's pretty easy because this one right here, 20% chance to grant us a reduced skill 2's cooldown by 1 turn at the start of a turn. Our skill 2 lets us go ahead and put HP recovery immunity on all of the opponents. So I mean, hey, we want that ability to go off as much as possible. So if we're able to abuse that and our opponent has a healer or something, we don't even have to worry about it, but because we're constantly going to be putting that on and they're going to be missing out. Other one that you could also do is swiftness, and I think this is a really good viable option if you don't have his skill page card, and that's going to grant us a +1 SP buff anytime we have less than 2 SPs at the start of a turn. So initially, we're obviously going to always have less than 2, especially if we don't have a skill card. We're not going to have that ability to constantly generate that SP. So swiftness, I think, is a really, really good option. And then I would kind of either pair it with something like damage res or even the HP recovery received. If you do have a healer in your team, then this would be like a great option to go with this swiftness and then the HP recovery received. Or if you don't have a healer, or you could go with this one, the increased damage res. So that way we go ahead and we have a less chance to take those crit shots. As far as some supporting heroes to kind of pair up with Yami, if you do not have his skill card, Charmy is a really great option. And she is a blue, so it's going to help you take down that red dungeon for gear very, very easily. Goes ahead and grants an ally a percentage of own magic attack as HP recovery, but this is what we want. We got a 60% chance to grant an ally an SP +1 buff, which is going to help us out on Yami. But that is it. I hope you guys and girls enjoyed the video. Stay happy, stay safe, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.